Alright, hello and welcome to HRL Season 7, round number 8, Gotti GP. This is part 1 of the second doubleheader of the season. The second track is going to be Sasquatch Nest SX, and that'll be coming up later in the night. That'll be round number 9. But going over Gotti GP a little bit, this is one of two long GPs that we're going to have in the schedule, the pit road right there. So this is a little experimental, I guess, with these GPs because they're longer than any GP we've had before. So just experimenting even more so than we have in previous seasons, I guess. I'd say the longest GP we've had before, though, is probably somewhere around a minute in terms of lap time. This one's at about, if you're slow, you're running about a minute and a half. Fast lap times are going to be a little bit faster than that, at around, like the fastest lap was an 87, perfect transition, 87.098. Detail taking the pole. 87.459 was second with Luke, and really close behind was Real Deal, third with an 87.495, so really close right there for second and third. And then you have Roman with an 87.767, so not too far behind. And then Hunter fifth with an 88.213, so not that bad either, just a little bit off the pace right there for Hunter, but again, not that bad, qualifying fifth. Can never really be bad, so I'd say most of these drivers are running somewhere in the 87s or 88s, just depending on the lap. 86 is probably possible, just really hard. And I'd say the slower drivers are going to be running somewhere in the realm of like an 89 or an 88 or something like that. Or high 88 to 89s, maybe even 90s and 91s, it depends. Luke and Detail won the heats. Detail with heat 1, Luke with heat 2. Detail won the semi, Real Deal second, and Luke third. That's going to lead into our starting lineup. So it's going to be from right to left. Detail, Real Deal, Luke, Fireball, I believe. Just making sure. Yep. Roman and I believe Ramda. Yep. Vulcan, Hunter, and I think that must be Camby, right? Wait, hold on. Is that Camby? Yeah, it is. And then we have Shift and Sector. Sector looks a lot more orange. He usually looks more brown. I don't know why he looks so orange. Well, I guess from that angle, Cammy's definitely a little bit more orange than him. So no light on this track because I'm an amateur forger. So we're just going to be going by a grenade start, which would be kind of nice actually, because it's going to be a really nice test on these guys' reaction times. I think it'll actually work out kind of good, I guess. I don't know. It's experimental. Shouldn't be that bad. But anyways, let's get right into it. Nades off. Just exploded, and here we're going green. Relatively clean through the first corner. This is where it's going to get really tricky, is when they go into this downhill cave section. Yeah, a lot of drivers slamming, not making the greatest use of their brakes. One driver flipping. I think that might have been Vulcan right there with the flip. Detail with a good start. Out to the early lead, Real Deal second, Luke third, Roman fourth, and a battle for fifth between Fireball and some other driver. I couldn't necessarily tell. Still can't tell who that is. Oh, it's Ramda. It's Ramda. 100%. Speaking of which, this track was made by Luke and Ramda together. Starting to forge, get the Power Forge duo back together, and this is just like their other tracks. So most of the layout was done by Luke, and pretty much all of the aesthetics, all the layout, all the aesthetics were done by Armada. So if you like the way this track looks, definitely shout out to Ramda. If you like the way it runs, that was more so Luke. So and the other track later in the season, Viper Canyon, is the same way, forged by both of them, and same split of their duties, I guess. The thing that I like about the way this track looks aesthetically, and this partly has to do, this is one of the tricky sections of the track, by the way, that little downhill chicane, right into these double neg cambers, which are also pretty tricky, so two really tricky parts of the track back to back. The thing that I like about this track aesthetically is the way it kind of blends in with Alpine naturally. Like, a lot of this track looks like it's just the Alpine map, like the Alpine canvas, but it's not. I don't think any of it is. Or, I mean, obviously part of it is. Like, you'll see parts in the backdrop that are obviously the Alpine canvas. So I take that back. Yeah, part of it is the Alpine canvas, like obviously right there. But that's the thing that I really like about this track aesthetically, and I think that both forgers did a good job, like combining here where to place the track and where to place the aesthetics, to make it really blend with the look of the natural canvas. Because not every track is like that. Some of our tracks are I'm not going to give a percentage because I have no clue, but some of our tracks are pretty much built from the ground up aesthetically, the layout, everything. And then some of our tracks also blend in a little bit more with the canvas that they were built on. And I think this is one that blends in a little bit more with the canvas. It has a lot that has been constructed, though. It has a lot that was definitely made by Armada. But I think that he did a good job of making it like all fit in with the background. So there are times where on this track, like you can't exactly tell whether you're racing on something that was forged or whether you're just racing on the Alpine canvas with some with the track layout over it. So I think that's easily the biggest strength of this track aesthetically. I just love the way how it blends with the canvas really well. I gotta give a shout out to Ramda. I mean, I think some people were saying Viper Canyon looks better, but I think this one looks better, and I think he did a great job on this one aesthetically. I think this is one of his better jobs. So, shout out to him on that. Another thing I like about it, I just have to comment. I'm trying to keep an eye on these pits, by the way, because this track should have pretty interesting pit strategy with how long these laps are. Like the pit strategy should be pretty good, but we don't have many drivers pitting yet. Oh, there we go. As soon as I say it. So who just took their pit stop? That was Sector takes his pit. So he's going to pit. He's going to come back out in last, but he wasn't in last going into the pit. So he might not be in that bad of a position. We'll have to get back on that. Another thing about this track, I'm just going to zoom out for a second so you could see it. Even though we have a pretty good top 5 battle, I'll get back to that in a second. But just look at this track from like a backdrop. It just looks absolutely insane. Like seriously, Ramda, really outdid yourself. Like this looks amazing. And I remember because obviously I was still working on the layout as he was working on some of the aesthetics, and just like seeing the whole thing come together was really cool because I remember it looked pretty rough when he just started off as you would expect, and I think it came out great. So Detail's still in the lead here. He's built himself a pretty good lead on Luke in second. Luke's got a solid gap on third, fourth, and fifth, but enough raving about the aesthetics on this track. I'm going to take a look at this battle because we have a solid battle here. This is Real Deal, Fireball, and Roman going at it third, fourth, and fifth. And my nose frickin' itches, and I cannot get it to stop. Alright, going up the hill. Now here's the tricky section where you can see some moves being made. Not any going to be made that time by. And Detail must have had a rough run there because Luke gained a ton on him. And even the back drivers did it a little bit too. Fireball going to take his pit. Ooh, that is close, and I think that might be a 1-point penalty there because I think you need 2 tires in the box. So I think that it was a crappy pit too. That's unfortunate for Fireball there because it was a crappy pit, and that might I think be a 1-point penalty because he had 3 tires out of the box. So that's very unfortunate there for Fireball, and he also pulls back out behind shift. So, man, that is a sucky pit for Fireball. He might be out of this one for the lead battle. He was looking like he'd be right in it, but I think it's safe to say for the lead battle, he's probably out of this one now. It's going to be very tough for him to get back into it because he's got to get by shift, and then he's got to just make fat gains because he had a really crappy pit. So as you can tell, the top 5, like the rest of the pack, really separated. Like 6th through 10th or so, they've got like their own little sort of pack going on, but the top 5, there's definitely a skill gap on this track because these guys have separated themselves, and they're all pretty close. As you can see, they're all relatively close in how fast they are, but everybody else has kind of fallen off the pace. Or maybe they've taken their pits. I don't know. I have to keep paying attention to that. I also have to pay attention to what time the race ends at, so let me check that right now. Okay, so it does not feel like it's been that long. We are over halfway through this race right now, and this is exactly how the race went too. I saw, or I heard a lot of people commenting on that, how the races felt like they were going by so fast, and I think it's because of the fact that the track is super long, but you're not thinking of it in terms of like time per lap. You're thinking of it in terms of laps. You know what I mean? So like you finish laps, and you think like, oh, I've only done 5 laps. How is this race already halfway over? Because you're used to tracks being a little bit shorter than this one. So That's probably what people are thinking. They're like, dude, we've only done 5 laps. How is this over halfway? Like, that's ridiculous. But that's just the way this track's designed. First mega track, I guess you could call it. Got to make a real life Road America, man. Then we'll have a minute and 40-second long lap time GP. Ooh, that sounds like fun. Ooh, little slide out right there. Detail has definitely fallen off a bit in the past, or maybe Luke's picked it up. I can't really tell. I think from what it looks like, I think Detail's fallen off a bit in these last few laps, and he's definitely lost a bit of that gap. Luke's relatively close, like maybe 2 goose lengths behind him, and still maintaining a pretty solid gap on Real Deal and Roman, though. That's staying relatively the same. But definitely catching up the Detail there, so he needs to get that settled because he's starting to lose his gap that he worked hard for earlier in the race. This will be a big portion of the track here. Oh, and a little mistake going into it. That's going to lose even more time for Detail. So he has definitely got to settle this down here and start to bust off some clean laps. And we're going to have a taker. Luke's going to take his pit. Looks like it's a clean pit. Roman also going to take his pit, also a clean pit. And unfortunately, the theater's glitched, so you don't see them shooting their magnums, but I was there, trust me, they were shooting their magnums. So they're both going to pit, and Luke's going to, I think he had a better pit than Roman, because, oh, this is close! Ramda's going to get out in front of Roman. And I think that must mean that he still has to pit. But that's huge right there for Roman. So just like with Fireball, Roman takes his pit, ends up coming out right behind Ramda, and that is so unfortunate because now he's got to work his way by him in order to gain extra time. So I think Roman definitely did not benefit off of that pit very much because, you know, same situation with Fireball here. And, okay, he's going to get by Ramda right there, so not too bad. Not as bad as Fireball's, but definitely not the best pit in the world for Roman right there. And, you know, to show you the gap, like, that definitely hurt him. There's Luke, and I know Luke definitely did not have that big of a gap on Roman before they went in the pits, so definitely a mistake there. Perhaps he should have stayed out, like, one more lap, because his pit stop was pretty good. I don't think he could have gained much more time than he did there. Like, I don't think he had a faster pit stop than Luke, but it wasn't a bad pit. Like, I thought it was a pretty decent one, so, yeah, I don't think that was the issue. I guess he just needed to stay out an extra lap. Which it's hard to gauge, though. Like, you can't really tell where you're going to come out, so you can't really tell. You just got to take your best guess, essentially. And, yeah, that's pretty much all you got to do. So now, potential lead battle between Detail and Real Deal. And we're going to have to see how their pits go, because their pits might be crucial, and Detail's going to go in. Detail's going to go in, takes his pit, and for some reason his Magnum shoots. And there's his pit. Where is he going to come out? He's going to come out in front of Luke still and definitely gain some. So that must have been a really good, either a really good lap or a really good pit for Detail because he gained a ton of time right there. And I felt like Luke and Roman had relatively good pits, so that's just insane that he gained that much time right there on his pit. And I was checking the time, and I don't think it's going to be 2 to go this time by. I think it might be 3 to go, but we are getting there. We are getting very, very close. And in terms of pit strategy, this might be an interesting scenario here because we have Real Deal out front, probably going to take his pit soon, and you would expect him to come out battling with Luke, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that because they were close for second and third before the pits, so you would expect after the pits that they come out kind of near each other. Roman and Fireball still 4th and 5th. They settled out, but obviously they're not battling. Their pit strategy kind of screwed them. They've definitely separated their gap by now. But yeah, let's go get our eyes on Real Deal because we're going to have to keep our eyes on him, and it's going to be close on the time too. Oh wow, way more time ticked than I expected. This actually is going to be 2 to go, 100%. I changed my mind. This is definitely going to be 2 to go. So my bad on that. I was completely off. Alright. Oh, and that could be a crucial mistake right there. Real Deal spins it in that downhill corner, so that might screw him up a little bit here. I knew the Elgato software was going to pop up. Let me fix that. Alright, and Real Deal is coming in for his pit. And this should be relatively close here. Pit box number 15. I was just curious. So coming out, and it should be pretty close for second and third. Side by side into the first corner. Aw, I got cheesed. All over each other, but it looks like Luke's going to hold on to second place, so we might see a battle continue there. The interesting thing is, you know, regardless of that battle, Detail's pretty much got this race in the bag. Very huge lead there to ruin with 2 laps, so it would be impressive if he lost that lead, especially with the fact that second and third are actually having a battle, and that's probably, we'll keep our eyes on that because that's probably the closest battle on track. Fireball and Roman looked like they were pretty separate, so. Yeah, I think you can definitely tell the pit strategy coming into play here on Gotti, and I think second moto should be a lot better with the pit strategy, a lot more interesting, but I think this race should be a pretty good showcase on why the pit strategy, kind of like the Jokers in Rallycross, can really add an extra element to these races and make them interesting and exciting in a whole new way, I guess. And we're coming close here to the end of the race. I think it's going to be 1 to go. Detail not the best run in the downhill, but again, like I said, it doesn't really matter at this point. Oh, and Real Deal spins it again, and that might be Ripperoni for his chance at second place. Yeah, it probably is. So we're just gonna saddle up here for the end of this race, the last lap. White flag is out. And Detailed, solid start, solid pit stop as well. Like I said, it must have been a really good pit stop because he had people like right on him going into the pit, and then after he comes out of his pit, he just has like a huge lead on both of them. So he must have had a really good pit stop. Through the cave. Thought I'd take you through there in 1 lap. And circling around, this will be, unless something insane happens, this will be his 5th moto win of the season and going for 3rd overall in the second moto. Making fat points gains, and you know, once the mulligans come out, once we figure out what the mulligans are looking like, then we'll have a better look at what the championship situation is going to be like, and it should be pretty interesting. Through the downhill shack, and that's pretty much it. I mean, you could even spin out here and be fine. Down into the HRL sign. Little Zolv advertisement. Yeah, you can tell second and third, not going to be a battle there. Coming across to the line. Detail going to take his 5th moto win of the season. And Luke's going to cross the line at second. Real Deal in 3rd. Roman's going to take 4th, Fireball 5th, and like I said, that top 5, pretty big gap. That means 6th is going to be Hunter, 7th, Vulcan, 8th, Camby, 9th, Ramda. Wow, look at that battle between Camby and Ramda there. That was close all the way to the end. Wow. Shift and Sector with 10th and 11th, and they weren't that close. Sector must have had a rough run. Rough one. Yeah, he had quite a bit of a gap there. Unfortunate. Alright, so time to move on. Well, let's just show off the field a little bit, I guess. There you can see it. Alright, time to move on to the second moto.